Yep. All right, here we go. Good evening, Saints fans. I'm John Hendrix here at Saints News Network alongside Brendan Boylan inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome previewing Week 5's Monday Night Football game with the Chargers. Brendan, how you doing this evening?
I'm great. How are you inside the dome?
You can hear the music pumping a little bit in the background, probably, and the Saints just left the field, so we're about 30 minutes from kickoff and such. So it's going to be a interesting game. It's always weird trying to get adjusted to no fans or the 750 they have, but there's no adjusting to it. It's just plain weird. So, Brendan, let's look at this matchup and just kind of preview this a little bit. Obviously, the biggest storyline here for the Saints is no Michael Thomas. Why don't you tell everybody, if they don't know, what kind of happened, what's unfolded here?
It was a weird timeline because the first initial reports and some of the reports that you came out with was that he was just simply ruled out. We knew he was questionable with an ankle injury. And then the story began to develop a little bit more. He got in an altercation with C.J. Gardner-Johnson at the end of practice Friday, and it got physical to the point where punches were thrown. And at that point, Michael Thomas was sat down by Sean Payton, and they tell him that he's going to be disciplined with a team suspension, essentially, for tonight's game against the Chargers. So he's out not because of the ankle, but because of a little bit of an issue that popped up in practice on Friday.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is nobody's bigger than this team. And I think, what maybe set this over the edge is possibly the treatment to the coaches, possibly, it's just going to be a building a bridge and move on type of scenario. And I don't expect it to be a big distraction, but obviously you're going to have a lot of people run wild with this and talk about the Saints locker room. But look, discipline is top of mind with this team. Sean Payton has always talked about it since day one. Last suspension they had was T.J. Williams, I think it was 2017, when in that London game against the Dolphins. That's the last time I can remember them suspending a player, and that was, team discipline, if you will. So, look, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But let's talk about the players they are going to get back. The Saints are going to get back Andres tonight, which I know a lot of people are thinking about, oh, my goodness, what? And during walkthroughs, he was paired alongside his normal spot, Ron Armstead. Nick Easton at right guard. They're going to get back Jared Cook tonight, and they'll also have Marshawn Lattimore. Talk about some of the impact these three are going to make.
Well, I think the biggest thing is Marshawn Lattimore, and not necessarily the impact that he's going to initially make just with his play, but you look at what the Saints were able to do last week. Yeah, they had some defensive pass interference penalties. They had 4 total penalties on the defense, but for the first time, the defense was keeping their hands off wide receivers. So can Marshawn Lattimore come back into that system and not commit the penalties and have a disciplined mind going forward? Now, they don't get to Norris Jenkins, but Marshawn Lattimore, a huge help. And as much as people don't like Andrew Speed, as much slack he gets from the fans, there's a reason he got paid $50 million in the offseason, and offensive line depth is a big thing, especially when you want to keep Drew Brees upright and create these running lanes for Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, who have ran wild the last few weeks for the New Orleans Saints. But I am a little concerned with that depth at the wide receiver spot. No Michael Thomas, but also no Deontay Harris tonight.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge for the return game. I mean, obviously, looking at walkthroughs and warm-ups, Marquez Callaway looked like he was the primary returner. Of course, we'll see what happens. They can run Alvin Kamara back there or Taysom Hill. It just really depends. But, the thing about Harris is he's able to flip the field just like that. It's interesting how they're going to be able to work. And Harris is the type of guy, you just put the ball in his hands, he's going to do great things. And so that's going to be a missing element and one to watch that we'll have to see. And, of course, he has a couple gadget plays in the offense. And so, again, you're just going to have to make do. And look, the bye week's coming at a great time for this team. Let's flip to the other side. Let's talk about the defense. Marcus Davenport's back. That's a huge thing. But during walkthroughs, we saw Trey Hendrickson lining up opposite of Cam Jordan. Patrick Robinson's going to get the start opposite of Marshawn Lattimore tonight. Talk about this defense and kind of what some of the things you're expecting with the challenges of Justin Herbert tonight.
Well, I think the biggest thing is what you said initially there. Davenport is back, but the Saints are going to ease him back into it because of the tremendous play of Trey Hendrickson through the first 4 weeks of the season. The Chargers, without 2 starting offensive linemen in Trey Turner and then the right tackle as well. So that's going to be a big thing for the New Orleans Saints. Those both quality guys, both Pro Bowl offensive linemen. Can the Saints defense disrupt Herbert enough and get to him enough? The Chargers also without their starting running back in Austin Eckler, was put on IR earlier this week. So a lot of pressure is going to be on the young quarterback to make plays, and it's going to be up to that defensive line to put themselves and those defensive backs in position to make some plays.
Yep, I do see some questions. By all means, guys, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But definitely a question I want to get to real quick is about Adam Trotman being inactive tonight. And, specifically, they called up Garrett Griffin from the practice squad. I think, obviously, the question is, this is an indication of his blocking not being where it needs to be. It's Griffin's active. And then their follow-up question there was, could you see them running potentially at Joey Bosa's side since he is a little bit banged up, Brendan?
Yeah, I think they very well could. And Bosa was the one between him and Mike Evans coming into this game for the Chargers. They believed Bosa was going to be the one that probably didn't play. So a little surprised to see him active tonight. But the Saints are going to be able to find some holes and find some gaps on a pretty banged up team top to bottom for the Chargers. I expect them to find a matchup they like, maybe run right at Bosa, but also you have to make up for what Deontay Harris brings in the offense. So what you said, John. So is Alvin Kamara going to be that puzzle piece that you're able to move around and you see a little bit more of Latavius Murray tonight?
Absolutely, and I like Murray. Obviously, him and Kamara have been a great 1-2 punch, and I think it's been one of the most underrated running back duos in the NFL. And so I think here for me, key is this offense for real? Are we going to see the same things we did last week against the Lions, where they had 5 straight scoring possessions? Is Drew Brees for real? Because, again, we talked about it after week 1. The defense did a good job against the Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but we saw it fall flat in week 2, and we saw it fall flat in week 3. So for me, I want to see if the offense is for real and Drew Brees, is he going to be able to take over this game? I know the storylines are there, right? They've won 13 straight in October. Drew Brees is perfect against his old team, and obviously he's playing against the team that drafted him. There's so many storylines here. Again, it's unfortunate that no fans are here, but those are some of the things that obviously I want to see. And defensively is a third down defense. And if you look at that Lions game last week, I mean, they gave up a bunch of third down conversions on their first drive. I mean, 3 straight. And it wasn't just third and short. They were good on first and second down, but they gave up 3rd and 8. They gave up 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 7. So those types of adjustments, they did make them during the game. And we're a little bit better, but you just can't have that. And Justin Herbert's the type of quarterback, whether you're going to have him in the pocket, the pass rush is going to be so important, or if they hit those bootlegs, which has been a problem for the Saints, that's something to keep an eye on. And so we know they can get after the passer. We want to see it unleashed. They've been doing a pretty decent job there. 3 sacks last week, kind of been the norm. Trey Hendrickson's kind of looking really strong this season, with 3 sacks coming into this game. So what are some other keys that you're looking for, Brendan, out of this one?
Well, I want to just touch on what you said about giving up 3rd and longs. And the thing that's really stuck out to me so far this year with the Saints is you've seen a lot of non-mobile quarterbacks picking up those first downs on 3rd and long, whether it was Derek Carr or Matt Stafford. They've done a great job on the back end defensively, but that pass rush hasn't been there in those big moments. So I'm looking towards that. But I'm looking for the Saints to really rely on that run game. Last week they did that. Yes, Drew had maybe his best game of the season, but you saw how effective the Saints were in between the tackles and pounding the rock. As you said, the most underrated running back duo in the league, perhaps, of Murray and Kamara. I'm looking for them to lean on them to open up everything else, especially when you're down Mike Thomas and Deontay Harris.
Absolutely. And, you could go on and see, right? You want to see Emmanuel Sanders do what he did last week, coming out in a big way. And same thing with Traquan Smith. Obviously, they got the bye week coming up. You get Tampa, you get Atlanta kind of obviously reeling. Carolina's looking interesting. I mean, it's just kind of one of those weird things, right? So the Saints are in a good position today. Again, it's not an NFC South opponent or an NFC game. So, again, it could go either way, but let's talk about score predictions, maybe some last final shots for this game. But how do you see this playing out, and who are you taking tonight?
I like the Saints in this game. As you said, all the storylines, undefeated in October. This is most likely Drew Brees' final game against the team that drafted him, unless Drew plays in the 2024, which he's the one who said we'll see. So with Drew Brees, you never know. But I like the Saints in this game. As I said, I think they're going to really rely on that run, maybe use some play action, and take those shots downfield that Saints fans are so desperately wanting to see. Let Drew show off that arm that was just raved about during training camp this year. I like the Saints 31-14, and maybe their best showing of the year on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, obviously. And, over under is 50 for this game. Saints are favored by 7 points in this one. I see them in this game. I could see some blows being traded back and forth early on. But the Saints are the better team here, and they make some adjustments. I expect a big run game tonight. I expect them to put up over 150 yards rushing. I think Drew will crack 300 yards passing. I think it'll be a good offensive drive for the Saints. And, we really didn't even talk about it, but getting Jared Cook back is going to be such a huge advantage for moving the chain. So I'm taking the Saints 31-20 in this one. I think they're going to cruise and, end up going into the bye week on a high note.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I like everything that you just said there. The dome looks beautiful. As you said, very weird without fans. But Jared Cook's going to be a big piece because you look at things on film, even what that doesn't pop up in the stat sheet, when he's able to run routes effectively and he's able to disrupt what other players do on the defensive side to attack Alvin Kamara, those things come up huge. You can look straight at Kamara's first touchdown against Green Bay. If it wasn't for the way Jared Cook ran that route and attacked that defense, that touchdown doesn't happen. So even things like that are going to be crucial for the Saints in this game. Cook's a very underrated piece, and a guy that, as you said, we probably didn't talk about enough here in the pregame show.
Absolutely. So it'll be an interesting one to see. Guys, we thank you for tuning in. As always, if you have questions, follow us here on Saints News. And be sure to keep up with us on Twitter at Saints News. I'm John J. Hendrix for Brendan Boylan. See us at halftime with Bob Rose and Kyle T. Mosley. Have a good one and enjoy the game.